Well, hey everybody, and welcome to Western Wednesday on the Rebel Roundup, our daily news and opinion show. I'm your host, Lise Merle, coming in hot from Regina, Saskatchewan, and joining me today is none other than the numero uno, top dog of Rebel News, Mr. Ezra Levant. Ezra, good morning, good afternoon.
Lise, great to see you. I love doing these live streams, but I have to admit I am not as well equipped as our regular Rebel News panelist, Sheila Gunn-Reid, our chief reporter, who lives and breathes Alberta every day. She's got one foot in ag, another foot in oil, not literally, but sometimes. And, you know, she's our chief reporter and really the backbone of the company. So I'm here as a second-rate fill-in for her. But luckily, we are joined by a couple of great panelists who I'm just so grateful to them because they both have their own projects. They have their own platforms. But for them to spend some time with us today, I'm really grateful to them. I'll let you introduce them.
Yes, well, today on the Buffalo panel, we have two guests who are going to delight and astound our viewers. First, we have the Western Standard publisher, Derek Fildebrandt, and joining Derek today is political commentator Marty up north, two of our favorite guys. Good morning, boys.
Good morning.
Top of the morning.
So I thought that we could start the show sort of doing a little bit of a recap of the Palev by-election that just happened in Alberta, and wondering if we could get your thoughts on that. Marty, what do you make of this?
Well, just the way you called it, right? You called it the Palev by-election. So, it was actually a by-election in Alberta where Palev happened to run. So it wasn't Palev's by-election per se, but the result was as expected. You know, he got about 80% of the votes. Actually, he got more than 80% of the votes. He parachuted in after his defeat in Ottawa, and then he came to Alberta. Somebody in Alberta stepped down and offered up their seat for a by-election. It just so happens that he landed in one of the top three most conservative ridings in the country. So, you know, pretty typical results. I mean, we expected him to win.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the people that didn't do so well was the darling of the CBC, a woman named Bonnie Critley. Okay, you couldn't have got more PR, free PR, if you tried, and Bonnie Critley got it all. I understand she claimed about 10% of the votes, but Derek Fildebrandt, what do you make of Pierre Poilievre getting more votes than the next 213 candidates combined?
Well, when you get a majority, you get more than I want to combine there. But yeah, the media, I'm cautious when I talk about the media. There is groupthink in the media, but it's not as uniform as maybe sometimes we say. But there was definitely a common thread through a lot, at least, of the legacy media to try and set expectations that'd be difficult for Poilievre. Everybody knew he was going to win, and he was going to win big. The question was he going to win big enough to meet this qualifier? Because he is a parachute. He is from Alberta. He's a born and raised Albertan, but he has spent the majority of his life and virtually his entire adult life in Ottawa as a politician and political staffer. So yeah, it is a parachute move, but that's not unusual for leaders who are without a seat, seeking a seat. You normally find a safe seat for from your party. So there was trying to manage expectations, and I mean, if you're going to put it somewhere, it should be, well, can he match what Damien Currick had, the Conservative MP who resigned for him? Can he match that? And it seems he has. The exact count is still kind of being made official because of the huge number of candidates here. Elections Canada, I think, made the reasonable decision to, rather than have a ballot a mile long, just everyone writes it in. One of my staffers, the Rebel, don't get any idea I'm already on this, but we're working with Elections Canada. We're trying to find out what were the different variations of the spelling of Poilievre. I still mess it up.
Well,
I normally miss the first I.
I'm curious to see, they'll publish the full results after Elections Canada validates the data that we can analyze. One thing I'm interested in analyzing is to see the number of spoiled ballots. You know, historically in Canada, it's about 1% of ballots in any riding are spoiled. Quebec's an exception. Quebecers spoil about 3% of their ballots. They're just, I think that's
good on them.
Yeah, socially, that's what they like to do. But
$20 says, though, that the second place candidate actually turns out to be a misspelling of Polyev.
yeah,
$20.
That'd be
$20 says second place is also Polyev. But like just looking through here, he won. He's got around 85-ish%, so he's matched what Damien Couric had. Second place was Bonnie Critley, a independent, and yeah, he crushed her. But 10% is actually, by Canadian standards, pretty damn good for an independent. She got more than twice as many votes as the third place Liberal, and more than 5 times as many votes as the NDP. The PPC was way back at 137 votes. I think 0.3% roughly, depending on how this comes out. But there are dozens and dozens of these so-called independent protest candidates who got 0 votes. Quite a few dozen who got 1 vote. A few more dozen who got 2 votes. But many who didn't even get 1 vote because none of those candidates actually lived in the riding. They're mostly from out east, and they had someone come out west and get it all done for them. But yeah, I mean, so there was kind of a managing of expectations in large parts of the liberal-aligned legacy media to say, well, is he going to get enough? And he has. This is solved. The whole thing has been embarrassing for him, though, that he was not there at the reopening of Parliament. It was bad enough to lose the election, but then to lose his seat too. It was embarrassing for him. I think he is going to recover from it, but it definitely damaged him with the party members. It damaged him with caucus, but not fatally so. And he'll likely now be able to recover because he's so strong when he's in the House, where he'll be.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add to that is, yes, he parachuted into a very conservative riding and he got the 80%, but he had to fight to get that 80%. You know. Watching as an observer here, he actually campaigned hard. He did what he should have done in the federal election. I get it, as the leader, he was busy campaigning across the country and he perhaps ignored his own writing. But we saw a Poilievre that we hadn't seen in a long time. He actually campaigned and did a lot of door knocking. So I think, initially when he first announced that he was coming here right after the election, people were pretty bitter. And I think if you had done a proper survey, his polling would have probably been 65-70%. So he pulled an 80% the old-fashioned way. He had to work for it. Mm-hmm. And I agree with Derek. I think this is good for him. He'll get back in Ottawa and then hopefully he continues to pivot, because that was the other thing I really liked to watch during the campaigning that he did here. He said things that he should have said during the main federal election. Like he talked about immigration. He talked about gun laws. Like he finally talked about, well, he talked as an Albertan. And so I guess maybe as a federal politician running for the leadership, he couldn't entirely be an Albertan and he had to tone it down. But during this campaign, he was an Albertan.
I'm out here in exile in Toronto. I'm born and raised in Alberta. And in fact, I briefly ran as a candidate myself before I myself was asked to step aside for the leader of a party. I don't know if you know this, when I was 29, I was a candidate for what was called the Canadian Alliance. I was nominated. My campaign signs were going up. And Stephen Harper became the new leader, and he needed a safe entry into Parliament. And Calgary Southwest, where I had been nominated, is one of the safest, at least city seats for the Conservatives. So I had to step aside. It was a little bit frustrating because I was Damien Couric was an MP for a few months, I suppose, but I wasn't able to finish the race. It is a tradition in Canada for this to happen, and I know that from personal experience. Here's what I thought was noteworthy about the by-election. First of all, turnout was very high, 58% for a by-election.
That never happens in a by-election, ever.
And so I'm thinking, well,
That's
why
wild.
did that happen? And I think there were a couple of reasons. I think people thought, oh, we better get Pierre Poilievre back in that house, because if we don't, we're in a pickle. And I think people saw the shenanigans. They saw the 200 fake spam candidates, not real. They're like the human equivalent of bots. And, as you pointed out, they didn't even get a single vote because they don't even live in the district. I think there's some shenanigans here that need to be dealt with. I don't know if we need it to be a law that you live where the riding is, but I think you should at least set foot there. And this is what I said on election night. And maybe we should have done this at Rebel News, but I don't know if we had the resources. If this were a shoe on the other foot, let's say Mark Carney had a special by-election to get him into the House of Commons, and some conservative-linked dirty trickster signed up 200 fake candidates, including perhaps someone named Mark Carney. Like, it's possible to find another, like we've seen that trick before. My point is, the CBC would have dispatched 10 staff to contact every single one of the spam candidates. Who are you? Sure. Have you ever voted for the Conservatives? Have you ever been on, like they would basically dox and stalk all these fake candidates trying to prove a conspiracy, which it obviously was a conspiracy. That means to conspire. They all had the same, many of them had the same agent. So, you know, I think that Albertans in Crowfoot, which is such a great district, it really is the best people. They thought, we're not going to let the media get away with this, with their chosen anointed candidate. We're not going to let the fake candidates get away with this. And you know what? We're going to put the Conservative Party leader back in Parliament to get down to business. I'm pleased with how it ended. I'm slightly sad, though, that Pierre Poilievre didn't win in Ontario, because I want to believe that the rest of Canada is open to Conservative ideas. And it frankly demoralizes me a little bit that he lost in Ontario. And of course Alberta's Conservative. It makes me a little bit sad that the rest of the country, at least in this one example, was not.
Well, it makes me very happy that he's going to be exporting Alberta energy and injecting it straight into the heart of Ottawa. That is what makes me happy about Pierre Poilievre winning in this riding. I think we need a lot more Alberta energy and a lot less Ottawa. So hopefully that's what we're going to see out of the brand new and improved and resurfaced Pierre Poilievre. He took his 40 years in the desert, and he would have learned something during the lead up to this campaign. So,
and one last thing, he officially set a record for the most number of people defeated in one election. So he officially he defeated 213 people. So congratulations, Pierre.
So actually,
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Right.
So actually, on that, and kind of following to what Ezra said about, like, do we need a law around this? The answer, I don't think, is a law saying you have to live in the riding, because the ridings are very often arbitrary lines that are drawn by people who know nothing about the area. I had a riding when I was in politics that it got gerrymandered into 5 different ridings, made no sense. The answer is actually pretty simple. You can have the official agent, the guy who is there representing you with Elections Canada. There can only be one official agent per candidate in that constituency. That does it. And the signatures, you need like 20 or 50 or whatever signatures to get on the ballot in the riding. It should stay low, because we shouldn't disadvantage independents any more than they already are. But you can only sign the petition for one candidate to get on the ballot in the riding in which you live. Those things right there would not disadvantage a single legitimate independent candidate. And it wouldn't be a heavy hand on it, but it would eliminate this kind of chicanery from it, and we could see the end of it. I'm not too hopeful we'll see it, because it has only been targeted towards Conservatives and so far never against the Liberals.
Can you imagine if we were using a ranked ballot system like they do in leadership races, where you had 200 names? Wow, then that would get incredibly complicated.
Yeah.
Only if no one wins a majority. In this case, Poilievre won a majority, so it wouldn't. But yeah, in a majority in most ridings, yeah, that'd be a nightmare.
An absolute nightmare. Let's not give Elections Canada any ideas, shall we, boys? Just before we get into our little law and order segment, I really quickly wanted to remind our viewers that are watching on Rumble and YouTube that there is a mechanism for you guys to get in touch with us right now. You can either do a Rumble rant. This is a paid chat on Rumble, or you can do it on YouTube as a super chat and a super thanks. So if you hear something that we just said and you really have opinions about that thing, and you really want to hear us, or you really want us to hear you rather, do consider participating on Rumble or YouTube via those mechanisms. So moving right along. In Edmonton right now, Constable Shiva Shanmungam is warning Edmontonians to remain vigilant in the wake of a trend of thefts, where groups of individuals approach people in parking lots, gas stations, or at the roadside and use various tactics to distract them in order to steal jewelry or scam them. What do we make of this story, Alberta boys?
Well, you mentioned Edmonton. Edmonton's turned into a weird cesspool in the last decade, and I'm not mincing words here, but Edmonton is the city that there was a video that came out of Edmonton like 2 weeks ago of exactly what he described. It was a Mercedes-Benz SUV with Ontario license plates. and they ran into the store and they literally filled like 4 grocery carts full of groceries.
I
And
remember
somebody
it.
in the parking lot was videotaping them as they were stuffing the groceries in the car. And they were speaking whatever language they're speaking among themselves and laughing, and they couldn't care less that the film was rolling. So it's a problem. It's a problem in a lot of places in Alberta, but it's a real problem in Edmonton. And but it's a general problem in the country that some of the that police are not doing their jobs. I mean, you know, you guys had something, you know, Ontario. What did the police chief in Ontario say? Leave your car fobs at the door so that it's easier for the people the thieves to steal. Like we're going too far here. I mean, they're trying to convince us that it's just property and it can be replaced. Well, people are losing faith in the police is what's happening, and that's my first take on it.
Derek Fildebrandt, could this be explained as some sort of weird cultural divide where new people in Canada just don't know that you're not allowed to do this? Or do you think that there is something deeper going on?
There are obviously cultural differences when people get here, particularly if they're from a particularly different culture. You know, they're not coming from Norway or something where we have very similar social norms. But I think there's 4 major things, and it's not just Edmonton, it's also Calgary, and I think this is plaguing cities across Canada.
Sure.
It's maybe more acute in Edmonton than Calgary, but it's right on our shores here too. We're seeing this kind of thing. I think there's 4 major things. Drugs, primarily fentanyl, but the drug crisis, which is totally out of hand. Mass migration, which has brought in far too many people who do not share our social norms, who have been brought in numbers that cannot be assimilated and adapted to the way we do things and our culture. A feckless and gormless police forces, which are afraid to do their jobs or told not to do their jobs, and a disarmed and weak public. There is now very little threat when you commit a crime against someone that they are going to do something to wreck your day back. There used to be a time where, and I don't want to preempt other segments that I know we're going to get to, but there used to be a time where if you committed a crime against someone in front of that person, there was a good chance you were going to have your day wrecked, maybe your life. That is no longer a major deterrent anymore on the streets. The police do not provide that deterrent, and then mixed together with the fentanyl and broader drug crisis and unrestricted mass migration, of course this is happening. None of us can sit here and pretend to be surprised.
Can I add one more? Great.
Sure.
I like your list, Derek. You got 4 great points. I'll add one more. There is a real component of Canadians being affected by bad policies and being poor. Literally, like, people are stealing. So that's maybe the 5th one. Some people are actually becoming desperate, and businesses are noticing it, right? The people are just casually stealing groceries and gasoline and things like that because they're literally hurting. So for some people, it's gotten so bad in this country under the recent policies that they're resorting to breaking the law and stealing. So I think that's the 5th one that I would add.
You know, I think in the case at hand here, I don't think that's the motivator.
No.
I think there's certain things you take for granted. Like, fish don't really know they're in water. It's so natural to them. We don't pay attention to the wallpaper. It's around us all the time. We are a high trust society. We're the kind of place that has a food bank that literally gives food for free, and each of us trusts the other, not just to go there for free groceries, but to let the truly needy. But I don't know if you know this, but across Canada, different food banks now have policies where they do not allow foreign international students on a student visa to Canada to go to these food banks for their first year in Canada, because they thought, these suckers, these stupid Canadians, they'll literally give you food for free. Why shop for it? Go to the food banks. And it's a cultural difference. People who come from a low trust society, you know, I remember one of the phrases in Iraq when they were talking about, me versus my brother, me and my brother versus my cousin, me, my brother, and my cousin versus the other clan. It's a tragedy of the commons. It's, if you don't take advantage of the other guy, he'll take advantage of you. That is perhaps what Western society was like thousands of years ago, but over the centuries, we built up trust. And you know what? In certain ways, it goes far worse than shoplifting. There has been a spate of rapes and sexual assaults amongst cab drivers of Syrian background in Halifax. And I'll tell you why. It's so obvious why. In our Western culture, if a woman stumbles out of a bar drunk at 1 a.m. and gets into a taxi, the high trust society, the male taxi driver, takes on sort of a paternalistic, I've got to take care of this girl and get her home safely. But if you come from a low trust society, you think, oh my God, there's a barely dressed woman, drunk and vulnerable, in my back seat. No one's here to look, and she obviously, doesn't have a husband or brother to take, or father to take care of her. I'm going to have at her. And there's a string of rapes, and it's every single time it's a cab driver from a low trust society. And in those low trust societies, there's a reason why women have to wear the full burqa and can't go out without a male guardian. It's for their own safety, because this will happen to them. So if you bring people en masse from true rape cultures, why are you surprised that that's happening here? Now, I talked about rape, but that is part of the low trust society.
Yeah, well, when I was a younger adult in northern Alberta, I didn't leave the keys and the fob to my truck by the door. The keys and the fob to my truck were actually in the truck. Yeah. Like I could leave my truck in the front of the house unlocked. And if I came out in the morning and my truck wasn't there, I didn't panic. I just knew that one of my neighbors probably came and borrowed my truck to go do something with it. But you're right. Now somebody would just go walk around and go, oh, wow, a truck with keys in it. We are a high trust. We're such a high trust society that we're considered suckers by many. I mean, some people who come here view us as just suckers.
Well, and I just wanted to mention the cab driver story out of Halifax. This doesn't just apply to rape. I can tell you that in the last 5 years, I haven't been in a taxi or rideshare by myself where I haven't been propositioned. Like, it happens all the time. Every single time I get in a taxi or rideshare, I can expect that there's going to be an offer made, made. And so this isn't contained to Halifax. This is happening to Canadian women every single day. And I think that it's time we start talking about the men that are making the props. Because listen, when I'm getting in an Uber or coming home from brunch in an Uber, that is absolutely why I'm not in the Uber. You know what I mean? All of these services are being added on top of the Uber experience. So anyway, something to think about as Canadians. But speaking of safety and law and crime, Ezra, I do believe you have a story for us concerning a young man in Ontario who was recently charged after defending his own home. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
It's the craziest story. I just saw the story yesterday. A 44-year-old man in the town of Lindsay, Ontario, which is about 90 minutes out of Toronto. He was sleeping at his home at 3 a.m., which is what you tend to do, when an intruder broke into his house. And there was an altercation, and the guy, I'm not going to characterize what went on there. Let me just say there was an altercation, and the intruder was injured. Police came, charged the intruder, but also charged the homeowner. In fact, charged him with quite some serious offenses. Assault, aggravated assault, I believe, assault with a weapon. Forgive me. It's not just common assault. It was some pretty serious charges, and the intruder is in the hospital now. I was shocked that this homeowner was charged with serious charges. So I put out a little tweet saying, if anyone knows this guy, have him email me at Ezra@rebelnews.com. And lo and behold, someone brought that to his attention. He did email me. I called him up, and it really is happening. He's hired a lawyer. We've agreed to crowdfund it for him. If anyone's interested, they can go to, we set up a website called Castle Law. Now, Castle, there's a doctrine. It's a very old doctrine. A man's home is his castle. And which basically means if you dare to go in there, you take your life in your own hands. And even the king cannot come in your house without a warrant. There is a very special place in our English legal tradition for your home. And we don't have castle doctrine formally in Canada. In fact, there's some jurisdictions where there's a duty to retreat, if you can believe it. But I find it outrageous, and we need to strengthen castle doctrine. And I think there's a few different layers here. Number one, the intruder was a serial criminal known to police who was out on the streets. That's part of the problem right there. Number two, he commits a crime, and this guy actually decides not to be a victim. He decides to defend himself. Why? Because he probably knew that the police aren't going to get there in time and they're not going to help him. Number three, he's charged. I think the reason this is resonating with so many Canadians is because they can see themselves, God forbid, in this position. So many people, especially in the big cities, are having their cars stolen. You mentioned that clip. In fact, Olivia, can you get that clip of the cop giving people advice saying, have your key fob near the door so when they invade your house, they don't have to go looking for it? If you can grab that clip, I really want to show people in Alberta how bad it is in Toronto, but I know it's also bad in Alberta. It's even bad in small towns. This is not just a big city phenomenon. Well, let me put it this way. Lindsay, Ontario is not a metropolis. This is happening everywhere. It goes to low trust society. It goes to, catch and release bail. It goes to the fact that people don't trust that the cops are going to protect them anymore. I suppose you could say, well, it's vigilantism. Well, listen, there's an old saying, better be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Let me play the clip for you. I just want to show you how bad it is in Toronto. Take a look.
Constable Marco Ricciardi had a new message for vehicle owners who keep their fobs in Faraday pouches.
To prevent the possibility of being attacked in your home, leave your fobs at your front door. Because they're breaking into your home to steal your car. They don't want anything else. A lot of them that they're arresting have guns on them, and they're not toy guns, they're real guns. They're loaded.
Constable Marco.
I mean, when the cop is saying you're on your own, make it easier for the home invaders so they don't get handsy with you. What message does that send to people, not just in Toronto, but across the country? You are on your own. And so if a fella in Lindsay, Ontario defended himself and didn't weigh to a nicety just how hard to fight back, you know what? I'm on his side. So we've set up Castle Law Now, which we don't just want to help this guy, but I think there should be some change to the criminal code that if you are defending your home, whatever the intruder does, it's on him.
Yeah,
I 100% agree. I mean, I live in semi-rural Alberta, not completely rural, but we have a large percentage of our population that's rural. And the police are, people say call the police. If I call the police here, it's going to be 20 minutes before they show up, if that. So, and I want to say this, we don't have castle laws in Canada, but I'd say Alberta is pretty close to there, right? We've actually had quite a few similar cases, and the judges have thrown him out of court and said, no, you're allowed to defend your property. So not your property, you're allowed to defend yourself when somebody's in your house. So we've had a few landmark cases in Alberta, and that sets a precedent. But I support a castle law. I'd sure like to see it as a formal law that if you're in my house, my driveway maybe not, but if you set foot in my house, expect some resistance.
Yeah, this case has many, many parallels to the Gerald Stanley story that happened in Saskatchewan in 2016, where a farmer, Gerald Stanley, and his wife were working in the yard when a group of ne'er-do-wells from a local reserve came on site. And, it was just a schmozzle. But in any case, Gerald Stanley's gun went off. He did a couple warning shots, and then one of the kids in the car was shot on his property. And he was charged and was dragged through the court system for 2 years to eventually be found innocent. Okay, he was not found guilty, but that he was dragged through the court system, the ideologically captured court system, for 2 years for defending his home and defending his wife is kind of egregious. Derek Fildebrandt, is it the homeowner that is the criminal, or is it the police and the justice system that is the criminal here?
Well, you obviously saw my tweet. The real criminal here, it's not even the guy who broke into the guy's house. It is the police officers who laid the charge, and it is the justice system itself that is coming after this guy. I've always felt strongly about this stuff. I feel a little particularly personally about it. The police came after me about 2 years ago because I had some vandals committing, fairly minor vandalism on my property, but it was repeated stuff I had in the area, so I was a little pissed off. And I had a walking cane because I was recovering from a motorcycle accident at the time. And I literally told them to F off and waved my cane at them like Grandpa Simpson. And the police charged me for threatening them with a shotgun because the vandals said that my cane was a shotgun. We proved it was not a shotgun. The whole thing was ridiculous, but I had to spend a bunch of money and time. And it costed me business because, advertisers are like, oh, is this guy going to shoot someone? Yeah. They came after me for literally waving a walking cane as I was recovering from a motorcycle accident at vandals. That was it was absolutely crazy. In this country, this is not just the Lindsay police or Ontario police. This is everywhere. Our justice system is ass backwards in figuring out who is the victim, who is the criminal. Who is the aggressor here? We have no sense of justice left in this country. Now, a number of years ago here in Alberta, we had a very high profile case. I know Marty will remember this. We had Eddie Maurice, a guy in Okotoks, that's a town just south of Calgary. He was just outside of it on a rural property. He had a guy, it was maybe a little more politically sensitive because it was an Indigenous person who came onto his property trying to steal some ATVs, and he fired a warning shot at this guy. He did not try to hit him, but it ricocheted, and the guy had a minor injury from a ricocheted bullet. And the police came down like a ton of bricks on this guy. They tried to take him to the cleaners. He was ultimately, I think he was acquitted, or the charges were eventually dropped. So in Canada, we don't have castle doctrine, but Ezra was right. He was alluding to English common law. We have forms of it that have been recognized over the centuries coming from our English legal tradition that has been watered down over time. Ultimately, if this stuff goes before a jury and you were being reasonable, if the vandals had set foot on my lawn and I had actually pulled out a shotgun and blown them away, that would not be reasonable. But as long as you're being reasonable, a jury will tend to acquit you in Canada. In most cases. But you're going to have to take out a second mortgage on your house. You're going to go bankrupt defending yourself. As Ezra used to say about the Canadian Human Rights Commissions, it's the process is the punishment. So fine, you might not go to prison for this. As long as you've got the means to take out a second mortgage on your house here and put together a prohibitively expensive legal defense, you'll win. We need changes to the criminal code here. We need to, every single cop involved should be stripped of their badges and publicly named and shamed here. The judges themselves,
now
not great, but the juries ultimately acquit here. But the punishment should not be the process. You should not have to be financially ruined for defending your home against an invader. And you know what? I pulled up some numbers while we're talking here. I like to use Montana as an example. Montana, just south of Alberta here. Now, they have some demographic differences with, say, Ontario, but one of the biggest differences is also gun ownership and castle doctrine. There is an extremely high chance if you break into someone's home in Montana, they have a gun and they're going to shoot you with it. The robbery rate in Montana is less than half of what it is in Ontario. Less than half. And the two big things are people in that house that you're breaking into are very likely to have a gun, and the government is not very likely to prosecute them for using it.
Yeah. And just wanted to add one thing. Yes, we do need, it'd be nice to get a formal castle doctrine. We might get one now because something interesting is happening. Now we have senior politicians that are being affected by some of these these crime waves. So didn't Ontario, Doug Ford recently get something happened to him? And
I'm so happy. I'm so happy you mentioned Marty, because we have a little video of Doug Ford talking about that exact event. Doug Ford with a personal police detail, had something happen to him, and we're just going to watch what he said about that.
I'm not sure if we got that teed up, but I can hear.
Sorry. He's talking. Sorry, we're going to watch Doug Ford speak out against the Lindsay man who was charged.
There's two clips, and I do want to show that first one, Lise, which is someone tried to steal a car right off of Doug Ford's own property. Doug Ford's the Premier of Ontario, and he happens to have a police car station nearby, so they caught him pretty quick. But that shows how pervasive it is, the Premier himself. But of course, not all of us have that police car. at our property. So that Doug Ford a few weeks ago was complaining about it, but he of course has protections we don't. But today, all the chutzpah, I think this is the clip that you're referring to. Well, can we play both, Olivia? Do we have both handy? Let's start with the one. So, Lise, you're exactly right to remember when Doug Ford himself was nearly robbed. Here he is talking about how bizarre that was, and he was only stopped because he's got cops stationed there. Take a quick look at this one.
He should get a medal for standing up. It's like down in the U.S., we should have the castle law. Did you hear about the guy that these thugs came up, ready to steal his car? They're all in their masks and everything. So I guess he was a hunter or something. He shot up in the air. I don't recommend that, by the way. But he gets charged. I got to find out this guy's name and number, and I'm going to hold a fundraiser for lawyer fees for him. He should get a medal for standing up. It's like down in the U.S., we should have the castle law. And I know any of these people here, if someone breaks in your house and they're coming after your kids and you're coming after your spouse, you're going to fight like you've never fought before. You're going to use anything that you have, be it weapons, baseball bats, knives. You're protecting your family. These thugs shouldn't be coming in there.
That's not even the clip I had in mind, but let me just tell you, he's a wicked liar. Because who do you think the prosecutor is of Jeremy McDonald? And so can you play the new, that's a great clip, and we should circulate that one widely, you guys, because that's, what he said there should be played by Jeremy McDonald if his matter goes to trial. But we just did a clip, Rebel News just clipped it. Here's Doug Ford moments ago talking about the latest case as if he's some passive third-party observer, as opposed to the guy who's prosecuting him. Here, take a look.
Did everyone hear about the story in Lindsay? So this criminal that's wanted by the police breaks into this guy's house. This guy gives him a beating, and this guy gets charged. And the other guy gets charged. But, something is broken. I know if someone breaks into my house or someone else's, you're going to fight for your life. This guy has a weapon. You're going to use any force you possibly can to protect your family. I'm telling you, I know everyone would. I'd be scared to break into Kevon's house. Look at that, he's like a linebacker. He'd beat the living crap out of the guy.
And you'd prosecute him. And you would prosecute him, you liar.
Because
the hypocrisy is unreal, eh?
Violence and breaking into people's homes, putting guns to their heads. And guess what? Some bleeding heart judge, little Johnny.
So the judge is prosecuting him, bucko.
So we're going to let him out on bail 5 more times because he's on his 5th, being let out on bail 5 times, just to go do the same thing the next day. I'll tell you one thing. I get more calls than anyone in the country. People are done with this.
Well, you're not. You're prosecuting Jeremy McDonald.
You're the premier of the province. Change the rules and fix the problem, Doug.
Your family and your kids.
Well,
you should use all resources you possibly can to protect your family. And maybe these criminals will think twice about breaking into someone's home.
Liar, liar.
Okay, boys, have at it.
If I can get in here, I really hate the role I'm going to play for myself here. I am not a defender of Doug Ford. Doug Ford is taking that position probably because he has a good sense of what's popular. He does what he thinks is popular, and I think to the average person, you don't have to have any great understanding of castle doctrine. What's happened is ridiculous. Everyone understands who the real victim and the real criminal is here, so that he's on the right side speaking there. But the criminal, God, I don't want to defend Doug Ford, but I'm gonna have to semi-do it here. You have to forgive me, everyone watching, forgive me. But the Criminal Code of Canada is federal law. That's not provincial. It's not like in the States. In the States, the states have a large latitude in matters of criminal law. Now, the appointment of the prosecutors, that is provincial. The appointment of at least the lower court judges, that is provincial. And the police force itself, that is municipal. So I think there's some room for grace here. I want to be fair to Doug. There's 99 times out of 100. I think there's a lot of fair to hit Doug Ford on this one. I think there is some limited legislative work that can be done by amending provincial statute in Ontario. They could follow the lead of some of the small things that were done in Alberta, largely after the Eddie Maurice case that we were discussing. There is some that can be done. But ultimately, I think this is primarily the fault of the police themselves. Those cops, as I said, should have their badges stripped. They shouldn't be allowed to be mall cops after this. But the big change needs to happen at the federal level with the Criminal Code of Canada. And because he's so chummy with the Liberals, maybe he could use a little of that political capital, call up Mark Carney and say, hey, I've been shining your shoes here for a bit. Why don't you do this one for me?
I'm so happy he brought up his relationship with the federal government, Derek, because he has sleepovers with the actual prime minister. And, you know, if there's a good time to mention to the prime minister that we need to reform some of these laws, it's then. But Marty,
so Derek, I like what you're saying. So you're kind of referring to the fact that cops are no longer using their discretion, right? I mean, if I beat up a guy on my property, a cop could show up at my house and look and go, yeah, that guy's in trouble, and drag them back to the jail and leave me alone. Well,
no, I think it's cops always have to use discretion. They're just using their discretion extremely poorly. They're charging the wrong people. When vandals attack my vandals damage things on my property, they charge the guy who tells them to pee off or F off and waves a cane. When this guy breaks into someone's home and the guy defends his home, they charge the guy who defended his home. Right. Both are using discretion. They're just using it in an appallingly terrible way. So the fault is the police here, and the fault is perhaps, we don't know enough about it yet, the prosecutors who are provincially appointed, perhaps some fault there, because they can decide not to go forward with prosecution. The decision of whether to lay charges is mostly in the hands of the police. Sometimes they'll consult with the prosecutors. I'm not sure if that was done in this case or not, but the prosecutors have a decision to make now if this is appropriate to go forward. But the big one, if we're going to prevent this going forward, the Criminal Code of Canada needs to be changed. When you enter someone's home with the intention of committing a criminal act, you have surrendered your right to the protection of the state. Your life now belongs to the man and woman who owns that home.
You know, I don't know who made the final call to make these charges. It would not surprise me one bit if they consulted the Crown Attorney's Office. And, you know, what's the test for a prosecution? Reasonable likelihood of conviction, and is it in the public interest? Those are the main ones. There's sort of a newer third one as well. I think that this is really designed to tamp down anyone who has big ideas of defending themselves. I think, now I don't know the exact details and I have not availed myself of the information, let the court work its own processes, but I bet you this guy will be acquitted for certain by a jury, as you mentioned. You know what? I mean, let me just switch subject for a second. I've been covering the Tamara Leach trial for years now. It's the longest running mischief trial, not just in Canada, but in the history of the Commonwealth, more than 50 days. And people hate Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland. They didn't charge him. It's all the provincial government. And the decision to be so obsessed with it is the provincial government. And I think we should never forget that Doug Ford has been like this with the feds. Even during the trucker convoy, he declared an emergency. He's the one who had a "you can't go outside for any reason" announcement that even the police forces said, "Yeah, boss, we're not going to enforce that." Doug Ford, Dean Skoreko on Twitter calls him Fat Trudeau, and I'm fat, so I shouldn't call anyone else fat. But damn it, that sticks. Fat Trudeau. He is sort of Fat Trudeau. He's sort of dumb like Trudeau. He just, he's so awful. He's worse than everyone except for the Liberal and NDP alternatives. And he tried to undermine Pierre Palev during the federal election. He said just yesterday, Olivia, call up this clip if you please. He said yesterday, I'm going to continue to insult Donald Trump every day. And I'm thinking,
just wild.
You're not a diplomat. You're not part of our negotiation team. You have no, authority to conduct foreign relations. You have an auto industry that's at risk, frankly. You know that this is counterproductive. Donald Trump sometimes takes things personally. What is your game, you stupid buffoon? Why don't you, I know what the answer is. He's trying to distract from his own failures over 7 years, and he's trying to rebrand the coming recession as a Trump recession rather than his own fault. Take a listen to this idiot.
I'll never stop, poking Donald Trump, but we're going to focus on what we can do. So that no matter who the next president is, or whatever the next crisis, we're able to protect our workers, the services the public relies on, and our communities. Not just from President Trump, but from anything that comes our way for decades to come.
All right,
we need to build a stronger and more resilient.
I just can't stand it. But he's going to keep poking Donald Trump every day. I think that Mark Carney actually wants the U.S.-Canada relationship to fail. And thank goodness for Danielle Smith, who is not a kamikaze pilot like Doug Ford there. She has the self-discipline. I saw her in Washington on the inauguration. I bumped into her at an event. She was down there making friends. Because they are the number one importer of, in fact, almost the sole importer of Alberta oil, Saskatchewan oil.
It's a scorched earth strategy, Ezra. I agree with you. Carney in particular. I mean, the failures of the Liberals, rather than acknowledge the failures of the Liberals of the last decade, let's just keep driving forward and making life worse. And blame everything on Donald Trump. It's done on purpose. Everybody should be able to see this. They're using Donald as a boogeyman and deflecting off of him all their failures. It's to me, it's black and white.
Yeah.
Mr. Derek, what do you think about Doug Ford?
Very little, I hope.
He just defended him.
I almost drowned out an F-bomb there when you asked the question. Yeah. I barely stopped. I've got kids. I'm getting really good at stopping myself now. Look,
I'm definitely bookmarking that quote of Ford. Now, if I'm ever in court, I'll say, "Well, Doug told me to do it. He told me to defend myself." Yeah. So bookmark that somewhere. Yeah.
Well, look,
go ahead.
No, you're good. Sir, go ahead.
I was going to say, talk about Derek. When you said I'm reluctant to say this, I thought you were going to be the grown-up and say, "Look, we have to let the legal process act independently. It shouldn't bend to the will of journalists or politicians." And that is a correct thing to say.
I would agree with that.
And I thought that's what you were about to say a few minutes ago when you said I'm going to say something that may not be popular.
Well, actually, that is actually a part of it. Is that Danielle Smith got in a bunch of trouble for discussing the possible pardoning of people who had been given tickets and charged and whatnot in Alberta during COVID. And I think that'd be appropriate, but she got in a ton of trouble for it. Technically, in Canada, the heads of government, unlike governors and presidents in the States, cannot pardon directly, but they can make recommendations to, there's a certain board or body of some kind that can issue pardons. This has been done for certain times. People have been pardoned for acts of sodomy, criminalization of homosexuality back in the 60s and whatnot. There have been pardons, but it's much less regular in the Canadian political culture. You've got to be careful on interventions directly into the justice system. And so I have to be a little give a little grace to Ford there, but you've got to. But it's the law itself. The justice system itself is broken. The justice system is stacked with people with no sense of justice itself. But ultimately, the biggest single change we'd have to make to this is around castle doctrine. On the trade issues you were just talking about, I think as a general principle, Ford does have a right to intervene on this topic to defend the interests of Ontario. Smith has done so for the interests of Alberta. I think she has been significantly more successful in this. She understands both MAGA and Trump himself as an individual a lot more. He is very sensitive. He takes everything personally. And so when you go after him personally, he's going to take it very bad, and it's probably not going to work out for you. Is Trump a bully? Yeah, of course. The guy is obviously a bully. He's like blonde Tony Soprano. But you've got to learn to deal with Tony Soprano here, because guess what? Tony Soprano is 10 times our size. He could crush us, and he could do it just out of spite. And so I think Smith's approach to this has been a lot, not entirely successful, but a heck of a lot more successful than Ontario's, which is they have no idea what to do now, because the end of EV mandates in the States and the end of EV subsidies in the States has left Ontario and the federal government holding the bag for Ontario's non-existent EV battery industry, which is going to cost tens of billions of dollars to the taxpayer and might not see a single one actually roll off the assembly line.
Hey, I don't mean to interrupt and go back 2 minutes, but just to close the loop, you were talking about deference but the political deference to the legal system, but we just saw Doug Ford say, take a baseball bat, do anything. Like the guy, if I was the lawyer for Jeremy McDonald, I would just say, look at the Premier. The Premier has told me what to do in this case. I mean, how can you prosecute in the face of that? Like, I've never seen such interference as that. Doug Ford is never the grown-up. Derek, you can be the grown-up sometimes, but Doug Ford is never the grown-up. By the way, it's possible to figure out how to work with Trump and his personality. That's called diplomacy. How do you handle a huge personality like that? I mean, LBJ was a huge personality. Obama had a huge personality. Stephen Harper, who was diametrically different from Obama in every way, managed to find a way to work with him. That's part of being a leader. And I think Danielle Smith has figured it out. And whereas Mark Carney, and I don't know, I'm worried about it. But can I throw a question to the other lads on the panel and to you, Lise? On election night, we talked to a number of people on our live stream, and one of them was Keith Wilson, who was a lawyer for the truckers, and he's also a lawyer for the independence movement, and he's working on that file. And he said something that was a little bit of a black pill. He said, look, does it even matter? You know, does anything change, or any of the systemic problems in Canada changed by the by-election results? And it made me sad to hear it. And there's something to it. And you know, I think the reason that Crowfoot showed up big time for Pierre Poilievre is because they hate Mark Carney, and they hate giving the Liberal media a victory. So of course they wanted to put Pierre Poilievre back into Parliament. That was an easy decision to make. But now what? Like, I think Mark Carney has a de facto majority. The NDP and the Bloc are going to back him as if it's a majority. It's going to be another 4 years. And I think everything's going to get worse, from immigration to policing to taxes to a recession to a provoked trade war. What is the temperature? What is, and I don't know, maybe Derek's the one with the most, you know, ears to the ground. What is the current state? Is it just on the summer holidays? Where's the independence movement now?
Before I answer, though, I got to say, I thought we were on for an hour, not an hour. This is an hour and a half, the show, right?
No, we're done at the top of the hour. We're done in 7 minutes.
Oh, okay, good, because Corey Morgan is about to come in the studio and start his show.
We'll
live.
let you go.
Okay.
You know, in fact, if you have to go early, make your comment.
No. If we're ending at the top of the hour, I'm good. Look, the independence movement itself is still hot, but in terms of the broader general public, because the independence movement is not a majority at this time. It's a sizable minority. But I think, you know, kind of the middle public that's between the Jason Kenney and Thomas Lukaszuk and Naheed Nenshi style unconditional federalists on one side, and then Keith Wilson or myself or Corey Morgan on the other, you know, the roughly third of Albertans in the middle that would decide something like this. I think most Albertans are still in a wait and see moment. Carney has said some of the right things. He does not have, in German we have the term Backpfeifengesicht, which means a punchable face. He does not have a Backpfeifengesicht. Carney just looks like a regular generic white dude who works in an accounting firm. So he's not naturally dislikable the way that Trudeau is. But he has not yet had to make the tough decisions. He is on a lot of these things said, I'd like to do this, and here's some conditions that if met, we can do. I think he's setting up conditions that are very unlikely, if not impossible, to meet. And then he can wash his hands of it and say, it wasn't me, it was this process. And everyone says that process was fine, so what do you want? He has not yet had to make the tough calls that are going to really light a fire under anyone yet. I would agree with Keith Wilson. I don't think the by-election actually changes anything. I don't think if the Conservatives won the federal election, I don't think it actually fundamentally changes Canada at this point. I think the changes that would be needed in Canada are so radical, fundamental, and constitutional that no one would be willing to do them. I think, you know, Poilievre and the Conservatives having won the last election, if they would have, it would have slowed the decline, and it certainly would have not meant that there's any major appetite in Alberta for independence, because that would placate us, because the team with the blue jersey won. But yeah, I think right now it's a wait and see moment. It's the summer. Carney has not had to make those big tough decisions. It's impossible to say yet.
Yeah,
Marty?
we're definitely on the same page on that one. I've been to 3 just last week. I went to 3 independence events, one in Caroline, Alberta, Strathmore, and another one closer to home. And people are like, it's there. So the tension is there. There is a large percentage of the population realizes that Confederation's broken right now as it is, and the by-election doesn't change much. But I 100% agree with Derek. The fate of the independence movement right now is in the hands of Carney. It's what he does next. If he's smart, and I don't want to give him advice, but he's probably got people advising him on this already, Albertans just want to be left alone. We just like go back to 2010, 2012 Alberta. We just like to be left alone. We know we're wasting taxes, going to transfer payments. We don't care about that as long as Ottawa's not interfering in our lives every single day. So if Carney's smart, he'll leave us alone, and he will even and he can be really smart and give a few carrots to Albertans, approve a pipeline, do something, and then he will disarm the separatist movement. But if he's not smart, then they will reignite. So it's in Carney's hands, and we're currently in recess. We'll see what happens when Parliament resumes in a couple of weeks.
Well, Marty up north and Derek Fildebrandt, thank you so much for joining us today on the Buffalo panel on the Rebel Roundup.
And if I could just say, Corey Morgan is literally leering over my shoulder. If you guys want to keep this, if you want to keep this conversation going live, Corey Morgan's on live in 2 minutes. This is how I'm making it up to him by not giving him the studio in time. So he's leering over my shoulder right there, right off. Come say hi, Corey.
We love
look,
Corey.
we're getting a cameo from Corey Morgan.
There he is. See, right there. Okay, so that's enough. Go watch Corey Morgan after you're done watching this, folks.
Right on.
Just the best, guys. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. We hope that you'll come back another day. Is that a yes?
Anytime.
I'm on.
Yeah, I'm always on. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, have a good day, boys. Oh, before I let you go, tell people where they can find you. Marty up north on X. Come and share some thoughts and provide some feedback. I love interacting with people on X. Awesome. Derek?
WesternStandard.news and all the regular social channels. You just search for us.
Excellent, boys. Well, thanks so much for being here, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Lise.
Well, Ezra, wasn't that fascinating?
That's fun, and I'm grateful for those 2 lads to spend some time with us, especially Derek, who's got a busy shop of his own, and you can see he's in the bustling newsroom there. So I'm really glad to do it, and I like the fact that we have a Western-themed live stream, and I feel sort of homesick because I was born and raised in the West, but I'm in exile and here in Toronto. But it's nice to hear, and Toronto, there are some wonderful things about Toronto, I won't lie, but it's not like home. I mean, Alberta is a special place, and I know Saskatchewan and Alberta are twins. They were born on the same day in 1905.
We were twins that were cruelly separated at birth in 1905. Yes. But Ezra, you have an open invitation to get on this Buffalo panel every single week. Okay. To get yourself a dose of Western enthusiasm and Western values. We know that you're right now trapped in Toronto, but that your heart belongs to the West. So you just have an open invitation to pop in any old time you want. Okay.
Right on, Lise. Thanks very much. And thanks for hosting the show.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, Canada, this has been a slice. Thanks so much for joining us on Western Wednesday on the Rebel Roundup. Hey, thanks to all of our rebels working in the control room, making this magic happen for us every day. We really honestly could not do this without you. And we will be back tomorrow, same place, same time on the Rebel live stream.
Lise, just before we go, I think there was a super chat.
Was there? Please read it. I can't see.
Okay, I'm going to dig it up here. Can you put it in the live stream of the Slack, and I'll read it right away. And Lise, I'm sorry to keep you here. There it is. $10 from, I can't even see that. If you can pump it up a little bit, from Cool. It's just a little small for me to see. There it is. Cool Moe. $10 says new Liberal bill coming, crime fairness. If the home invader has much less money than the victim, and the victim in the spirit of DEI and empathy shall give the invader 5% of the difference in net worth. You know, that sounds crazy and ridiculous, but so much of what is normal today was crazy.
But it is
ridiculous
believable.
10
Yeah, it
years
is
ago.
believable.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Like every time you think that it can't get any more upside down, they spin us around.
there you go.
Yeah, oh, good. Well, thanks so much for that chat, guys. And sorry I missed that. I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it in my thing. So, so where were we, Ezra? We were just
saying
signing off.
goodbye, and I just grabbed you for a second because I oh, you know what? Here's one more. Silver feet, $6. Look at Anna's reaction when Pierre started his victory speech. Whoever you are, my future wife, I'll surprise you with happiness like this every day. You know what? That's a lovely thing to say. Anaïda Polyev, you know, she has been a secret weapon for Pierre Polyev, and I'm not even talking about her role as a mom and a wife, but she's just been a great. I mean, she's great on the campaign trail.
She's delightful.
Yeah.
There's nothing not to like there. She is a top shelf woman. Yeah.
Here's one more. Alberta Dawn, $5. Harper. Oh, put that back up just for a sec so I can read it. Harper put through a law that if a non-citizen was convicted of a crime with a penalty more than 2 years, they can be deported with no appeal to delay the sentence. Trudeau canceled it in 2016. I am unfamiliar with that, but it rings true to me, that's for sure.
It sounds like it's more than plausible. Yeah.
Well, Lise, thanks again. And to everybody who's watching, keep fighting for freedom, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.